Looking back, my biggest moments of growth had pure delusion at the root of it. Quitting my job for social media with hardly any money saved, setting a goal to grow my YouTube channel to 100K, and surpassing financial goals of 6-figure months after growing up paycheck to paycheck are just a few examples of that delusion. If I'm being honest, the people who have a little bit of crazy in them are the ones destined for greatness, and I can't wait to share my latest delusional idea with all of you. Bubby. Anyways, okay, let's get into it. You know how I talk a lot? You know how I can't shut up? You know how I have opinions? Guess what? You're gonna get even more of that. You're gonna get that in your ear. If you wanna hear it in a train, in a plane, in a car, in a boat, I'm gonna be right there with you, baby. Right there in your ears. No, so actually I wanted to do a quick little Q&A about the podcast, what you can expect, some really exciting things I'm so pumped to share with you. I promise this podcast is being made with so much intention and so much thought. I am not rushing any part of it because this is actually my second podcast. We'll get into that, but it's my new baby and I just want to take my time with it, but you can expect it in the fall. So what's the news? Okay, as you already know, spoiler alert, your bestie is launching a podcast. The podcast is called The Delusional Diaries. Let's talk about the name a little bit. I decided to name it The Delusional Diaries because when I thought about my trajectory so far, being an entrepreneur, being self-employed, hitting milestones, like everything had a little bit of delusion at the root of it. For example, quitting my job with very little money and not a whole lot of plans, but a lot of faith, quite delusional. And by no means do I recommend doing things like that when I tell you guys my story, but what it boils down to is like the level of confidence I had to have in myself and the ability to bet on myself. The delusion was in that because nobody else is gonna have faith in me like I'm gonna have faith in me. And that goes for all of you too. So when you tell people your plans, your goals, your dreams, and they're looking at you like you're absolutely crazy, let them. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, you have to be crazy enough to believe in yourself against all odds. And so that was kind of the theme I felt for a lot of my career so far, being self-employed, being an entrepreneur, many times stepping out on faith, just knowing that I could count on myself and I can't count on anyone else, and that's enough. But there's also been other instances of like delusion per se, just like being delusional enough to pitch myself to these big corporate companies. And I told you guys that story about when I got my first really big brand deal, and the only reason I got it was because I asked for it. Initially, I was gonna say a completely different number, and I knew I should have asked for more, but something in me was like, Bria, triple that number. I tripled it. They immediately said yes. It's the delusion in these moments that has accelerated my growth, and I wanna spotlight delusion in a positive way. So that's why it's kind of called The Delusional Diaries. Now, in terms of topics, we're gonna be talking about everything, but I think there will be a special focus on a lot of the common issues we face growing up right now. I say growing up, but I mean like those new problems you start to have as a mid to late 20-something-year-old. I don't think it'll matter how old you are listening to this. Obviously, I'm speaking from the perspective of a 28-year-old, but I feel like there's so many things that just need to be talked about because I personally have experienced a lot of guilt around these issues, thinking something's wrong with me. And the second I link up with one of my friends and we're like, wait, you're going through this too, I'm going through this too, and we're just talking about it, and I hope to bring peace to people and just like a sense of normalcy that like you're not alone in your problems, because sometimes that's what's helpful. Even if you don't have a solution, just knowing this is a part of the journey, this is a part of the plan, everyone experiences this, brings a little bit of peace to me at least, and I hope that it could do that for you as well. So let's talk about more things with the podcast. I wanted to address this because a lot of people are asking this question saying, what happened to the other podcast you had? I did talk about this when it happened. So long story short, I had another podcast, if you guys weren't aware, called The People We Follow. You can literally still find a lot of those episodes if you want. It was just like one season. It was a really, really unfortunate ending because I got sick. My health completely deteriorated at that time, mentally and physically, and I had to make a really hard decision. I didn't want to do that. I was very resentful. I still think about it and I get really upset, to be honest, because there's a lot of reasons why I felt angry. People have asked, well, why don't you just restart that one? I can't. I can't pick up that one because there's too much anger behind how it ended. And I'm not gonna get into that because it really doesn't matter anymore. It's like over a year later and I'm obviously in a much different place. I still learned so much from that journey, and I think the biggest lesson I got out of it was I can't take on too much. I have to ask for help, because basically how that manifested was with my body and with my mental health at the time. And those of you that also don't know, I had been diagnosed with PMDD. I won't get into that in this video, what that is. I do have videos on it, but it is very difficult to work in that condition, and so that was a reason I had to take a step back, put some things down, take a break, and restart. I wanted this to be completely separate because I don't feel like that girl anymore that started The People We Follow. I feel like I'm in a completely different headspace. Also, just the structure of this podcast is gonna be different. So with my last podcast, it was definitely meant to be an interview podcast. Most of the things we talked about were related to social media. As much as I love social media, I don't want it to be the main topic that we talk about on my podcast. I want to use the space to talk about really whatever I want to talk about, whatever is coming to mind, whatever I'm feeling is necessary to speak on. I just want to have a little more room to talk about other things. Sure, social media will come up because it's such a part of my life, but I don't think I need to make an entire podcast around it, if that makes sense. Also, this podcast is going to be a solo podcast, so I will not be interviewing anyone specifically for season 1. That could change, but as for now, it's just going to be your girl talking your ear off, and I think you're really going to like it. The whole premise behind it, if I had to kind of put like a description on it for you, I would say self-care for the soul, okay? Self-care for the soul. And you'll start to understand a little bit more with the branding when it starts to come out, when I start to release things, but that's how I want it to feel. A lot of the time when I do these chatty videos, you guys will say things like, you're my comfort influencer, I feel like we're FaceTiming, like that's the vibe. So I wanted to feel very casual and comfortable for you. So I'm really, really excited. I am putting a little spin on it that I've never seen done. It's gonna have this very unique touch to it, and there is gonna be video. So now you know there are podcasts that have audio and visual. So I did wanna let you guys know that's gonna be happening. That said, yeah, you can watch it or you could just listen. But there is gonna be a cool element if you watch. That's all I'm gonna say. I gotta save some surprises for you guys.
How you feeling, Queen?
I'm feeling bougie. Feeling bougie.
She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her. She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her. There must be something about her features. You'll find her beauty goes.
Okay, so this one, what's something you're proud of with this podcast? In the nicest way possible. This podcast has been a little difficult to get off the ground because of resources, okay? Something I'm really proud of with this podcast is that regardless of resources that I did or did not have, I did not take no for an answer. And you guys know that's something like I fully believe in. Like there's no such thing as no in my mind. If I want to do something, it's gonna get done. And this podcast is literally the best example of that because I'm trying to say this in a nice way. There were people who were supposed to help me with a lot of pieces with this. And I will say this, they did not give me the time of day, okay? And at first I was like a little salty a little salty. But then I thought about it and I was like, I don't want anybody touching this podcast that doesn't respect it and understand how precious it is. If it's just gonna be me, it's just gonna be me. But no, I found the most beautiful, small team of people who have been so helpful. From the photographer, to our creative director, to my assistant Brenda, to AJ, to Tatiana on hair. I mean, everybody who touched this podcast was perfectly picked by me and also saw the vision. So ultimately it ended up working out great. I won't be joining like a podcast agency, you know, in the first season or anything like that. That was where I was having issues. It was an option at one point, and I think ultimately being rejected by all of those agencies led me to this idea that nobody has had. Like, I promise you, nobody's doing what I'm about to do. And I think I'm stepping into this space with a level of creativity that I was forced to have due to lack of support. And for that, I'm so thankful. There are no salty feelings. There were at first, but now I look at this and I look at how far we're progressing and what it's turning into. And I'm just so proud that I didn't let that get to me, because for a while it did. You know, rejection can be tough, but ultimately rejection is a little redirection and is protection. And basically I'm a rapper. So take that as you please.
Is it just me or is it something more? You'll never believe me when I tell you this. Could it be pain or pleasure? That's the risk. Are you ready? Like I'm ready for this. Breathing heavy, sure and steady. Know this.
So you may be seeing like pictures of me in bathrobes, and some people were a little confused. What's going on with the bathrobes? So this is a part of what I wanted to explain in terms of having my little unique touch. As I mentioned, if I had to describe this podcast, I would describe it as self-care for the soul. The bathrobe is kind of just a little representation of that. You'll definitely understand more of it as episodes get released. But if you see me in a bathrobe popping up on your timeline, you know what's up. It's the podcast. And last, when is the official launch? So to be honest, I'm not setting a hard date for this because there are a few pieces to the puzzle that are still in the works. So I literally can't set a hard date yet. However, I can tell you it will be in the fall. My recommendation is, if you haven't already, go follow me on Instagram at heybriajones. This is where I'll be posting updates around the podcast. I have a little highlight on my Instagram. It's titled DD because a little cute nickname for the podcast is the Double D podcast. But yeah, sitting on B's here. Anyways, that's where I'll post updates. There will be an official TikTok page, Instagram page coming your way, and that's where you can like exclusively follow that content. But I'll be posting all those updates on my personal Instagram page until then. So make sure you follow me there. And of course, if you're not following me here, subscribe, because I'm sure I'll do like a little vlog the day of the launch just to take you guys through that journey with me, so you can see how it comes to fruition. Yeah, that's the premise. Look out for the Delusional Diaries coming to literally every podcast platform. Spotify, Apple, you name it, I'll be there. And let me know in the comments what things you want to talk about. Literally nothing is off limits. This is going to be like, it's a diary. I called it a diary for a reason because word vomit is my specialty and I just want to keep it so real. And I already do that here, but now I feel like it's gonna have a different element to it, a different twist that you guys don't necessarily see on YouTube. But if you like the chatty videos I do on YouTube, I think you'll really, really like this. And I'm sure I can make the time go faster for you if you just pop on my episodes while you're driving, working. Don't tell your boss, I won't. Yeah, we're just gonna vibe. So let me know what topics you want to talk about, and I will definitely be sure to add that to the list. And I can't wait to share this with you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, and I'll see you guys next week.